with the latest episode of What's Your Wheelhouse. I'm your host, Megan Bauer, head of customer success at Spinwheel. Today, I am happy to be joined by Jordan Greenberg here. Jordan, you want to take a second and introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, excited to be here. I'm Jordan Greenberg. I am the Director of Partnerships for Forward, an embedded payments company. And I'm also the co-founder of Fintechas, a networking and community group based here in Austin, Texas.
Love it. Great name creation there.
Thank you.
Um, so Jordan, we are super excited to have you here today. Thank you for joining us. You highlighted this a little bit, but your wheelhouse is embedded payments. So what can you tell us about that? What should people understand about embedded payments right now that they might not?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question and excited to dive in. I think one of the things that's most important for people to understand about embedded payments, especially software founders, investors, operators, is that just because a platform can take payments doesn't mean that they have a payments business today. And those are two very, very different things. The top software companies that we work with don't view payments as a feature. They actually think about it as core infrastructure that improves retention, increases revenue per customer, and delivers a much better customer experience. And I think that that's one of the shifts that we're kind of seeing in the market now is that there are all of these SaaS platforms, both horizontal and vertical, who over time have had payments be kind of a plug-in that allows their customers to invoice, do billing. They also allow their customers to bring their own payments infrastructure to their software and reconcile between two different systems. But we've now seen a lot of vertical software move into wanting to offer their own native embedded uh, payments offering because, again, makes a very defensible product. Um, and so if you look at giants like Toast and Shopify, they're not successful because they process payments. They own the financial relationship with their customer, and it makes their products really sticky. And as we've seen in the markets, it's increasing their multiples, increasing revenue, even in the age of this rapid AI expansion and adoption that's driving the cost of building software down. So, yeah, in the age of like SaaS apocalypse, we see a lot of founders and investors turning to financial products, and embedded payments is usually the first stepping stone in terms of creating just a really valuable, defensible, and sticky product.
I'm loving all these names that you're giving out. SaaS apocalypse. Who coined that one?
I feel like that's one of those phrases that made its way around like LinkedIn and tech Twitter over the past 6 months. But yeah, I mean, it's probably some VC that, is a shit poster and prolific on the internet who came up with it and has leaned into it to the point where it's become an industry term.
Amazing, amazing. I love that. Okay, so you're talking a little bit about the importance of payments and why people are leaning into it. What do you think people are getting wrong right now about embedded payments?
I think when folks decide that they want to go down the road of creating their own payments experience or even thinking about optimizing their payments offering today, they're pulling on some of the wrong threads. So what we see is that software builders are great at building their core competency, whether they're building field service management platforms, they're building gym management software, so forth and so on. They're amazing at that, but payments is very complicated and it's done so intentionally by folks who have been operating in the space for decades because it keeps the bulk of the economics in the pockets of some of those larger players. And what we see is that these software founders go to some of these folks, um, and what they try to optimize for as they think about taking payments kind of to the next level is driving the cost down as much as possible. So their cost from a processor. However, I think about it differently because that's not the hallmark of what builds a successful payments product today. What actually builds a product that becomes really defensible, increases ARPU by 2 or 3x, is actually optimizing for attach rate. So instead of going out and thinking about identifying payments vendors who, can offer you some commoditized pricing, what you instead want to think about is going out to the market and looking for a partner. someone who can give you more control of the pricing to your merchants, control of the experience, whether you're using some fully white label tools, embedding more of the reporting and reconciliation within your software. I think one of those partners that you should look for is someone who can get you home, someone who can go and make sure that all of the volume that is flowing through your system is being captured by your payments offering so that it can be monetized. So if I were, and when I am talking to founders and investors, what I want to kind of drive towards is helping them align to where the value is. And it's not in creating the lowest buy rate possible with a processor or a vendor. It's actually in finding someone who can help you develop a playbook, who can help you go out and execute against that so that you're delivering on your business outcomes that you want to achieve through payments.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. It's a very high value component of an offering that people have. It's complex. And so it's not a race to the bottom in terms of pricing, and you don't always want the lowest cost option. You want to find, like you said, that partner and someone who will bring that value or elevate that value and optimize for that as opposed to cost necessarily.
For sure. For sure.
One of the things that we see with our embedded payments solution is that we give providers the ability to bring their own rails as opposed to using our rails. And so, what do you see from folks when you talk about the rails that they use or don't use?
Sure. I think every vertical has a set of rails that it wants to use, right? For example, some large ticket industries like contracting. If you're running a, platform or an operating system that home contractors use to run their business and do invoicing, they're going to want to use ACH. They're probably going to want a partner who also understands the makeup of who they are and who their customers are as well. And so a lot of folks come to us not only because, we offer a suite of ACH products, card products, digital wallets, but they also come to us because of the way in which we can partner with the platforms we work with on risk. Right. So in the context of, again, a service that contractors use, they might have high tickets. Their customers want to get paid in ACH. They might want to get accelerated funding because they're small businesses. The quicker they can get the money, the quicker they can deploy it back into their business, pay their subcontractors, so forth and so on. But there's also a lot of seasonality in those businesses and in those industries. And if you work with, some of the larger players who are at mega scale, who have millions of merchants, they're unable to tweak their underwriting algorithms and their ongoing transaction monitoring in order to accommodate that makeup of merchant. And so a lot of platforms come to us and they say, hey, like we want to work with you not only because of the tech that you offer, but also because of the way in which you enable us to partner on risk. And so that means that like everything we do is prescriptive, right? We take the chance to get to know their merchants, whether there's seasonality in the business, so that we can help them make sure their customers get paid quickly, get paid on time, while maintaining the health of the portfolio overall.
That speaks to me as someone in customer success, right? Like knowing who your clients are, what they value, and so giving them flexibility and maybe some sort of hybrid approach, but also being able to solution appropriately for the best possible outcome for them. All very important for that kind of that customer relationship piece there.
Yeah.
Um, you talk about, or you've mentioned a couple times risk, and we know that that's particularly important, especially for some of the smaller businesses maybe that rely heavily on payments. What should payment providers be thinking about there with regards to risk?
I think they should be thinking about the way in which they partner with their software customers on risk, right? There's very different incentives in terms of who owns risk in the makeup of an embedded payments relationship. If a software platform owns all of the risk, the vendor or the partner that they work with is more likely to let all traffic flow onto the system because we don't own any of the risk. We're not sitting on the same side of the table as you. And vice versa, if we own all the risk, what we are going to want to do is make sure that we're kind of tightening those screws so that we can prevent fraud from flowing onto the system. But one of the nice things about the way in which we approach fraud is very collaborative, right? We want to sit on the same side of the table as all of the software customers that we work with so that we can collaborate on building models that are tailored for you and your customers so that we can be partners in risk, right? We are aligned in our incentives. We're getting good traffic on the system. Sure, fraud is, a major concern these days in the age of AI. Um, but every good vendor probably budgets a little bit for fraud. And without any fraud, you're probably also blocking good traffic from flowing through the system today. And so we think about it through that lens of how can we, as partners, sit on the same side of the table in order to build an amazing customer experience, one where we're, auto approving the bulk of your customers, or at least driving up auto approvals, doing some conditional approvals where appropriate, and making sure that this isn't a black box that you don't have any control over, but one that, again, keeps us aligned, gets good volume on the system quickly, and delivers a really, really great customer experience.
Everything you're saying is just music to my ears. I love it, right? So having it's not just a one-sided piece, right? Like you
Yeah,
said, kind of mutual ownership of risk or responsibility, value, all of that stuff. And again, tailoring things to the best for the client as well as for you guys or for the partner. So I love it. Okay, kind of shifting gears a little bit here, thinking about AI because we know it's, the hottest topic right now amongst everything else. How is it changing the area of embedded payments? And not just in theory, but in practice. Like, what have you seen happening so far, and where do you think it's going?
for sure. We talked about the SaaS apocalypse a little while ago, and what we've seen is that like the ability to develop software is cheaper than ever, right? 10 years ago, it would have taken, 50 people to build an MVP that is scalable enough that it can be deployed to like 10 contractors. Today, someone who knows the space really well can build a bespoke piece of software easier than ever before. And they might be able to one-shot it if they're using a good frontier model or if they're using the latest Grok model that I heard is actually pretty good. And so what we've seen is software development timelines have come down. It's becoming dramatically easier to build software. But the payment rails, financial products, all of those workflows are still highly regulated. And so they've become even more valuable in a way and making software even more defensible in other ways as well. Because you can't really rip and replace a payments rail or a card network with AI. And so even though like it's easier for folks to go out and build software, integrating payments is making those pieces of software very valuable. It's increasing retention, and making them, increase their multiples still even in this day and age. And then I would say like from our side of things, we're also using AI internally to drive, new features, to get feedback from our customers, to triage it, to make sure we're always hearing that voice of the customer in terms of every single decision we make, in all of the products that we build. And then from a risk and fraud perspective, right, we're using AI to tailor models that are partner specific, very prescriptive. We're taking data from our customers about their merchants in order to improve our ability to drive up auto approvals, and deliver, great outcomes for those folks, and then using it to fight fraud as well. So it really exists throughout our entire business, as well as, the folks that we are working with. But embedded payments themselves are, making software companies uh, very valuable and again, increasing retention and revenue in this age of AI.
You mentioned, people aren't just gonna like rip and replace the rails, and it's kind of making certain elements of the experience more valuable, if you will, or like AI is increasing that. Do you have an opinion on how AI might impact like the rails or the networks as you mentioned before?
Yeah, I mean, I think payments is one of those things that takes time to adopt to change. And so we wrote a blog post recently I think is really interesting. But if you think about payments in the US today, card present payments still represent about two-thirds of all payments in the US. And present payments have been around for decades. right? E-commerce or card not present transactions are about a third of all digital payments in the United States, North America, right? And e-commerce has been around for 26 years. And so when people think about agentic commerce, agents running our lives, um, I get excited about the future, but I'm also wary of how quickly that's going to change because everything in a regulated industry takes time. And, based on the examples I just provided, like I'm thinking years away, if not decades away, until you're seeing agents manage every single facet of our online financial health and wellness. Um, and I'm probably not going to be giving an agent my credit card anytime soon to go out and, run free and buy plane tickets for me and my family. I think I always want to kind of have that human in the loop experience. Um, and then, in the world of like understanding risk when agents are transacting on behalf of customers, I think there's a ton of opportunity there to start exploring what that looks like and how we'll kind of mitigate some of those concerns moving forward as well. But top of mind, but I'm giving myself, a couple of years, if not decades, to kind of really consider where we go from here.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. That seems to be kind of a common theme throughout all of these conversations I've had with folks on What Your Wheelhouse is. We always talk about the AI component. It's like within the financial industry, things are very heavily regulated, but then there's also parts that can move really quickly. And so it's a little bit of this give get of like you can move really fast in some spaces, but then you have to slow down in others. And how fast will that catch up to everyone? And then there's always the conversation of like, how much will you let an agent do for you 100%, especially related to financial transactions, like you said, buying a plane ticket, right? So I haven't yet had anyone come on board and be like, hey, we're all in. I'm doing it right now. But I think, of course, it's only a matter of time. So,
Sure. I think it's a cool concept. And like, I would love to run a trial where I'm having an agent invest on my behalf. I'm just giving it some like funny money that's not, super meaningful to me and telling it to go and make me $1 million and see what'll happen and watch what kind of trades it executes. Not quite there yet. If anyone's building that, let me know.
yeah, right. When you find the
But
trick, send it
yeah.
to us.
Yeah, send them my way if you can make me an easy mill. But I'm still, anxiously uh, awaiting the day in which that'll happen.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be very interesting to see kind of what the next or what the big I guess I don't know, agent activity is or how it happens, whether it's going to be a slow draw or whether there's going to be something that's a little bit more sudden and significant. So, we'll wait and see.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, okay, I appreciate all of your insight into embedded payments. I love all the context you've given around the complexities, the high value, partnerships. All of those are super meaningful things to make, payments operate and to work well with different groups here. But on to the best question of what's your wheelhouse? Tell me a little bit about your personal wheelhouse right now. What are you most interested in outside of work?
Sure. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the things that we discussed in the lead up to the call today, but I'm a former professional squash player. So I grew up in Philadelphia, which is like one of the historic hubs for squash in the United States.
Who
Played
knew?
Who knew? I mean, I certainly didn't when I was a kid, but kind of fell into it and played at a high level through high school, got recruited and played in college. And then after a few years in New York City, started running one of the largest private clubs there called the University Club and playing on the professional tour, where I got ranked in the top 20 in the world. So it was a good career, but one that's known for leading to blown out ACLs and Achilles tendons. And so I left on a high note without ever having had that happen, and it's been a few years since I played. I think my susceptibility of injuring myself is pretty high, so I don't play as much as I once did, but definitely follow along still. Um, and then, the most meaningful thing to me outside of work is my family and being a dad. I've got a 3.5-year-old daughter, Quinn, who's amazing. Love spending time with her, going to dance class, taking her to swim classes. She's going in the morning with my wife to do one of those crazy immersion classes, but they're only 10 minutes. They get them like fully swim trained within a couple weeks, and it's really cool to see the progress. But Being a dad is just the best thing that's ever happened to me and totally changed my life. 10 years ago, if you had asked if I would see this for myself, I would probably have said you're crazy. But incredibly proud and excited to be here. Talking to you guys as a dad, as a fintech operator, investor, founder, and yeah, thanks so much for the time.
I love that. You're a professional squash player turned professional dad.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. I definitely take the role pretty serious. So, um, if anyone needs any advice, let me know.
Have you gotten your daughter on the squash court yet?
Funny enough, there aren't too many squash courts here in Austin, Texas. There's a couple,
Dang.
but it's a pretty big like outdoor endurance community. So we've gotten her on the bike, but we haven't gotten her in a squash court yet. Um, I prefer that she made a sport or played a sport that could probably make her a little bit more money. So
The professional realm.
in the professional realm of things. So if there's any like, I don't know, professional basketball players listening to this or any others, she's in like the 90th percentile of height, which is crazy. But if we want to get her started early, let me know the best way to do so.
I love that. So wait, I have one question that might be controversial related to the squash stuff, but I don't know, you tell me because I have not played either sport. But like, how do you feel about pickleball? Is there like some squash pickleball beef or
I feel pretty bad about pickleball. I feel like pickleball is a geriatric sport that makes people feel like good about themselves for getting out there. And like, by all means, I'm like proud of anyone that gets out and does it and commits to, activity. I think it's great for that, but like you're hitting dinks and doinks in pickleball. Squash is ranked one of the hardest sports in the world because the ball is constantly going at 180 miles an hour, barely bounces. So from a physically like demanding perspective, I look down on pickleball big time. Um, but
sorry for all of our pickleball listeners.
sorry
Oh
for
my,
all the pickleball listeners out there. I promise I'm a nice guy. But yeah, that's a tough one for me.
hot take. I love it.
Yeah, I'll plug Padel. Everyone should check out Padel. It's like the fastest growing racket sport in the country, if not the world. Um, and it's
Fidel.
Padel.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a
That's
combination of squash, tennis, and pickleball. And it's growing like crazy. So everyone
Is
should.
its hub also in Philly or is it being born out of some other place?
I think there's like I would think that like Miami was the hub, um, but it's like big in New York now. They're putting up tons of courts here in Austin because you can have like grass courts outside. You can play year round theoretically here. Um, and yeah, I mean people are just going crazy over it. So I'm getting out there on the court a little bit, and if anyone here in Austin wants to challenge me, please by all means go for it.
I have some homework here of watching a couple videos of maybe some squash and padel and pickleball and seeing how they all kind of compare to each other. But this was awesome, Jordan. Thank you so much for sharing all of your experience in embedded payments, and so happy to hear about how proud you are about being a dad and your previous your expertise in squash. So you were
Yeah,
ranked worldly. We're gonna have to see that.
for sure. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Um, Look forward to the next time.
I have